subscribe and like the video. HVAC business owners who want to do January 6th all the time, nonstop. It's crazy. What the hell is wrong with that generation? It's crazy. That generation is out of control, man. Here she is with Hasan Kanafani. Oh my God. Fusako Shigenobu, Japanese communist and founder of the leader of the Japanese Red Army. The GRA. Dude, this would be a fantastic interview, actually. I would love to talk to her. We did overcorrect on lead paint. Now it's microplastics, which is like having the opposite impact. It's pacifying, perhaps too much, an entire generation. And Mike and them gay, brother. Anyway, there's more video that came out. Here is the Al-Qassam, the Israeli hostages that were released. Also, were speaking Arabic.
Assalamu alaikum, marhaba. شكرا لكتاب القسام على كل المعاملة الكويسة. شكرا. Once again, this is propaganda for the record. Like, I make no mistake. This is absolutely propaganda. It's also kind of wild how high quality it is. It's like shocking that in spite of the and blockade and all things considered, like they still are. I mean, this is like they're better than I can. They got road mice. They got the TikTok road mice, bro. That's crazy. شكرا لشباب اللي كانوا يحفظوا علينا ودير بالو علينا من كاسف وإن شاء الله يكون الكل يوم سعيد.
She said, Inshallah, like Allah willing, it will be a happy day, the best day, and we will all be well.
كلنا نكون بخير.
يوم 25/1/25.
They have better lighting? Yeah.
25/1.
So, just so you understand, out of these four Israeli soldiers that were released, I suspect that, they're not all going to have the same opinions, and I'm not certain that they will maintain the position that they were like. They might not echo the same sentiment that other Israeli hostages and Israeli prisoners of war have echoed and have delivered, right? I'm not saying that at all. That only time will tell, right? So we shall see what happens in that process. But even in the interim, as far as we can see, the notion that they were impregnated does not seem to be correct. What is this? Here's drop site news. Oh, this is the full video for the prisoner exchange video. All four Israeli hostages are now reunited with their families. This is a wonderful day, by the way, for the record. This is a great thing. Oh, they also give them certificates too. They give them keychains, Al-Qassam keychains. And yeah, certificates. What is happening, dude? They give him, so I saw these gift bags before, like they give him goodie bag.
Assalamu alaikum, marhaba. Shukran.
So we saw this already. So obviously every act of existence from the Palestinian side is a form of resistance, as we've talked about quite extensively. But the very fact that these Palestinian militant groups are still capable of operating in Gaza in broad daylight in this way is 100%, perhaps the most devastating counter message to everything that Israel has communicated to Israeli society thus far. Okay, it's just like, it's crazy. That hostage comment is going straight to Ethan's videos. Mark my words. I mean, okay, like, I don't know what to tell you. RIP, I guess. I have to sneeze, but I can't. They returned to police stations to 100% operations within days. Yeah, CNN, Hamas appear to be trying to show that it still largely controls Gaza, despite what it was exposed to during the war. I mean, that is the truth. Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. I mean, it just, every single part of this is basically a direct counter. Every single part of this is a direct counter to, like, key ways of communicating. No surprise about the presence of so many Hamas fighters. Oh yeah, no, yeah, Hamas has recruited 10,000 to 15,000 members since the war with Israel began, according to U.S. intelligence brief to Congress. A similar number of fighters have been killed in the same period. Yeah, like who could have thought? Oh man, who could have seen this coming, dude? How shocking that this thing that happens every single time an occupying force, every single time an occupying force dominates an entire region and destroys them, okay? It leads to the resistance growing. This is the least shocking event of all time. But yeah, the key points that are being made in these sorts of videos and in general is like, one, the Israeli hostages were, due to their leverage, due to them being the only existing form of leverage that Hamas and the Palestinian resistance coalition forces had over the apartheid state that was conducting a due to them being the only leverage point, they were not mistreated to the best of their ability, right? And not only that, but also I'm gonna close the blinds, by the way. It's getting super blown out behind me. But also that they're still in operation. Oh, Fusako's daughter, she's a journalist and speaks English. Yeah, I might see if I can secure an interview with her. Hold on.
في اشتباك موقع في الطعام
I guess from the Israeli side, like if you need to, if you must. Whoa, why is this so dark? Now it's like shockingly dark and scary. Oh, it's much better now. Never mind that other light away. There we go. From the Israeli side, like they have to they have to maintain this position that Hamas is like violent and have no, like, Palestinian resistance is not born out of an understandable desire for emancipation against an apartheid state that is dominating their lives, but instead they're scary, they're evil barbarians that only want to do this because they have no reason to do this, but they're doing all of the things, all of the resistance because they're evil, anti-Semitic, barbaric monsters, right? So they have to maintain that position, and it's one that you can obviously easily destroy, no matter how much control you have over the way these things are shown to the otherwise captive audience. So let's finish this.
Ceasefire is the chance of a new beginning.
Channel 4 video.
But nothing is certain. Hamas, still able to turn out foot soldiers and heavy weapons, are not vanquished. And moments after the 4 hostages were handed over to the Red Cross, Israel said Hamas had reneged on another part of the deal for failing to release civilian Arbel Yehud. Until she's free, they're refusing to allow Palestinians back to northern Gaza. Wadi Gaza is effectively now an internal border with the south, where families...
People who... wait, you said something that's interesting. Hold on, where was it? People who call Hamas violent fail to understand their movement. They are violent. Hamas is violent. Of course they're violent. So is the Al-Qassam brigades are violent. So is the Islamic Jihad. Okay? The Islamic Jihad militancy. And so is PFLP, DFLP. Of course they're violent. Okay? Don't say Hamas isn't violent. They absolutely are. Okay? Guys, this guy's baiting. Never mind. Oh, it's one of those guys that probably is like saying this stuff to see how I react to it, or so that people can turn around and be like, see, this is the type of stuff that goes on in Hasan's community. He's like recruiting for Hamas or some shit. Get out of here, dumbass. Of course Hamas is violent, dude. What are you talking about? Okay? Violence exists within the confines of all politics. Politics is about who gets to do violence and how much violence they get to do. Politics is all about the distribution of resources and power. Okay? Violence is a part of that process. Violence is a part of that paradigm. Okay? All of a sudden, everyone is pro nonviolence when talking about Hamas. I mean, that's also like a delusional perspective, because look at this image. You know what I mean? There is violence that you can see in this image in and of itself, right? It's just that when that violence is dished out by a state, especially a state that is aligned with American interests, a state that is a vehicle for American interests in a region, okay, a incredibly important ally like Israel, that violence is seen as normal. And in order to justify that violence, you have to do a steady diet of propaganda. Okay? Politics is literally about who gets to do the violence in many instances. America gets to do the violence. Anyone who resists against that is bad. Israel gets to do the violence. Anyone who resists against that is bad. That's the violence that is unacceptable. Okay? So there is virtually no movement that has advanced any sort of civil rights or civil liberties or any sort of like emancipatory goals without like engaging in violence. And our history is covered with that. The Revolutionary War was violent. The Civil War was violent, right? Man, how are most borders in the world drawn? Through violence. And there are many different forms of said violence, but we don't need to get into that right now. And this is not like an academic setting.
And wait.
Hamas failed to meet its obligations to first release Israeli female civilian hostages as part of the agreement.
Honestly, Hamas's best bet is to probably surrender and leave Palestine. I see no other way. The USA will not stop its bloodthirst. Yeah, no, famously, it was always Hamas. Except it wasn't, right? Hamas is but an idea, all but a name. It's nothing, okay? Hamas is simply the newest version of militant resistance against the Israeli apartheid. That's it. It's going to be called something else. When you orphan 40,000 children in the Gaza Strip, it's going to be called Hamas too, okay? Do you understand? It's going to be called something else. There's always going to be an understandable need for emancipation. This is the most human thing, okay? That's it. That's it. So as long as Israeli sovereignty reigns over the Palestinians, there will always be some kind of resistance. It doesn't have to be called Hamas, and it has taken many different forms throughout Israeli history in its 76 years of occupation, okay? It's taken secular forms, Marxist forms. It's taken Islamist forms in its last iteration that still maintains a coalition alongside all other varying degrees of political ideology. That's it. And this is something that I think a lot of Israeli generals, including even Rear Admiral Dumbo Hagari, understands and has talked about. When Israeli generals say there is no military solution to Hamas, that is precisely what they mean. Okay? And he can hear me. Even though I'm in Japan, he can hear me all the way from Israel right now. Maybe he's heard me when I've talked about these things, and that's why he also has communicated this reality. When Israeli generals like war criminal Yoav Gallant, the former defense minister, says there is no permanent military solution to eradicating Hamas. We cannot solve this problem through military action. This is what they mean. What they actually mean is that unless you kill every single Palestinian, and even then, there's still going to be, a lot of people that live in diaspora. Like, there's always going to be a need for emancipation. People are always going to say, no, what the hell? I don't want to live under your rulership. This is insane. This is completely unacceptable. You're killing my family. You've destroyed my home. You've destroyed the mosque I go to. You destroyed the church I go to. You destroyed the school I went to. You killed my teacher. You killed my cousin. You killed my uncle. You killed my mother. You tortured my family. Do you understand? Ironically enough, the actual solution to ending this unnecessary bloodshed comes from, once again, pressuring the state that is responsible for the bloodshed and the violence continuing. It's making sure that Israel actually meets the standards of international law. That would go a incredibly long way of curbing back most of this violence, okay? And the only way that can be done is if the American government decides, all right, our designs for the Middle East have changed. And through this war of attrition, we have recognized that it's probably better that we abide by the standards that we are supposed to abide by under international law. And we are forcing Israel's hand to, carve out a real humanitarian solution here. One second.
Whatever the cause of the delay, hugs for the children they feared they'd never see alive again. Just some of the families who've been ripped apart since October 7th.
I love you, all the citizens of Israel who supported our families and our soldiers who did everything for us. Thank you very much. I love you.
Heartfelt reunions in Israel and the Palestinian territories. But beyond the numbers and the stark asymmetry of the two prisoner swaps, this ceasefire is far from guaranteed, with negotiations for what's called Stage 2 of the deal due to start this week.
Well, just before we came on air, I spoke to Jennifer Gavito, who's a former US diplomat and now a senior fellow.
The father of one of the hostages, by the way, just a reminder, Eli Albag, father of Israeli POV Liri Albag, who was released today, he made it very clear after the potential deal he's seeking the genocide should continue in both Gaza and the West Bank. He says, in these 10 months, another 50,000 terrorists were born in Gaza. There are 2 million Hamas people, and there are 2 million more in Judea and Samaria. For me, they're all Hamas, says Eli Albag, father of the Israeli prisoner of war, Liri Albag, and one of the main figures in the captives' families pro-deal campaign, said these words on Hapatrotim talk show on Netanyahu's propaganda channel outlet, Channel 14. Channel 14 is the Bibist network, the premier Bibist network in Israel. He made it very clear after the potential deal he's seeking the should continue in both Gaza and the West Bank. His daughter Liri Albag, 19, was taken captive by Hamas's Al-Qassam brigades on October 7th, along with several other Israeli occupying force spotters from the army base where they were serving in Nahal Oz. Bro, when you say a terrorist was born, you just lost the plot. I think there is a more sinister admission of the truth there. Okay? Like, on the one hand, yes, it's just blanket racism. It's just pure, unfiltered, unrestricted racism, right? But the other side of that is this admission, or rather the recognition that, yes, we are doing unimaginable cruelty to these people, and I think that's justifiable. And the cruelty necessitates, one, because of the initial racism, but the cruelty necessitates because these people will always resist against our incredibly violent endeavors, okay?
Atlantic Council. I asked her about the delayed release of civilian hostage Abel Yehud and how much of a problem it might cause.
There is a great deal of speculation about why that might be. There have been accusations that perhaps she's being held not by Hamas, but by Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and that still has to be worked out. Whatever the reason, the release of the 4 IDF soldiers this morning, surrounded by Hamas fighters, presented quite a striking picture.
Right.
And that might have, in fact, been what Hamas was agitating for. That being said, the Israeli government was very quick to point out that this was a violation of the ceasefire agreement. And my understanding is that there are urgent negotiations happening as we speak.
And you mentioned the footage that we've all been seeing of the 4 soldiers. To what extent is that going to make it more difficult for the moderates?
This is Pete getting got by propaganda. He could direct his anger to fixing the situation in the future and be an activist, but instead he got propaganded and focused on his energy on unfortunate. Yeah.
In Israel to continue to work towards a ceasefire and a durable one at that.
Despite the Israeli government's assertions and attempts, Hamas still exists and continues to be a force to be reckoned with. And so, in my mind, that really just reinforces the urgency of moving ahead with the ceasefire. In fact, figuring out how to get Palestinian Authority control over Gaza in order to displace Hamas. And more importantly, down the road, the importance of rebuilding, showing Palestinians that there is a different path that doesn't involve Hamas leadership, and that there, with Israel, is some sort of pathway to peace.
And how realistic do you think it is that Palestinians do find a way to support other leaders in Gaza that are less likely to choose a militant path?
Certainly more challenging than it was pre-October 7th. The Palestinian Authority has been, through its own actions and through Israeli actions, has really been undermined, diminished over the course of many years. And so there's a lot involved with this, as both of the recent U.S. administrations have spoken about. You have to reform the Palestinian Authority. You have to give Israel confidence that its borders will be secure. I mean, these are years-long undertakings. This is not a short-term project. And before you can do any of that, you have to find a way to rebuild Gaza. You have to provide homes, food, really critical humanitarian assistance. And so far, there doesn't seem to be a good plan in place to do any of that.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We're grateful for your insights.
Take care.
In the midst of this frenzy, coaches carrying around 60 prisoners returned here to the West Bank to be greeted by a wall of emotion.
So I take it, because you never dove deep, that there is no real Palestinian censorship on TikTok. I am not entirely certain as to how much censorship is happening. I think that there is a understandable panic right now, and some of that understandable panic might be real. Okay, but I don't know. I don't know like how severe the censorship is currently.
Among the crowd, Safia, waiting for her son Ishmael. In Israel, convicted of attempted murder, but to her and most in this throng, saluted as a hero.
We're thanking God. This is our state of mind. Thanking God for this life. Thank God.
This a prayer of gratitude for her son's return.
It is noisy and it is chaotic, but here there is a sense of jubilation as well, because for many in this crowd, these coaches and the prisoners inside them represent a victory over Israel.
Again and again, we hear chants in support of Hamas. The released prisoners taken to a community center for health checks.
You found a straight up influencer on TikTok and they denied your hate speech report. That happens sometimes, though. That happened even before. TikTok is both simultaneously the most like insane and intense terms of service, upholds the most insane and intense terms of service standards, but also simultaneously will be so like loose sometimes, regardless of like political ideology. It's very weird. Like, it's not, I don't think it's as deliberate as it is on like Twitter, for example.
Some went on to hospital, but most emerged into the embrace of family, friends, and well-wishers. This man is Ahmed Musa, released after 13 years behind bars. He claimed he'd often been beaten in prison right up until his final hours. He was overjoyed at freedom.
My message to all the Palestinian people, wherever they are, including in Gaza, West Bank, and abroad, you have mastered the art of creating joy despite the hardship and the we are dealing with. And to all the free people, I say this: prisoners in Israeli prison are dealing with the worst.
120 prisoners found guilty of the gravest crimes were expelled from Israeli territory. Just over half deported to Egypt, the rest sent into Gaza. Here on the West Bank, the sight of these men coming back from captivity seemed like a seminal moment for many. But the spectre of conflict goes on.
I think the future is going to be more sad for us because, you know what I mean, like everything will get bad from Israel occupation for us, I think, especially in West Bank.
Are you scared?
Yeah, of course.
These men were convicted by Israeli courts of some of the most serious crimes possible,